The rooftop gala glittered over Manhattan, and Amara Cole adjusted her press badge like armor. She was 28, a black woman with warm mahogany skin and tight coils pinned high. Dante Kade arrived in a black tux. 32, a black man with deep brown skin and a quiet storm gait. Photographers surged and Amara said, "I am only here to shoot the donors, not be one." A diamonded matriarch advanced toward Dante like a verdict. Dante said, "Forgive me," as if to the night, and his gaze locked on Amara. Heat ran through the crowd like spilled champagne. "You look like escape," Dante said, "and I need one." Amara said, "Try the elevator." He smiled, wicked and tired. The matriarch lifted a hand, and Dante closed the distance. "Please," he said, "just a second." His palm found Amara's waist. The city paused, and his mouth claimed hers. Flashbulbs cracked like summer lightning. Amara tasted danger and mint, then said, "What have you done?" Dante said, "Chose my freedom." The cameras howled, and the night wrote them into rumor. Morning glared through thin curtains, and Amara's phone buzzed like a trapped wasp. Headlines stacked with her face and that reckless kiss. Amara said, "I am not a scandal," though her pulse argued. Her best friend texted fire emojis and questions. The agency emailed a vague reminder about professionalism. Amara said, "It was survival, not romance." Dante's voice echoed from memory, low as thunder. He had said, "I chose my freedom," and the words clung like cologne. Coffee burned as she read comments that decided who she was. A cousin called to ask if she was rich now. Amara said, "I am still paying off lenses." She paced the narrow kitchen and drafted a denial, then deleted it. The city outside honked like it was laughing. Amara said, "He used me, but I let him." The truth pinched, and she straightened her spine. Today would not decide her. Dante's office hung over the city like a cliff, and he stood inside the glass, unblinking. His father's call was a blade. The Kade board preferred tidy alliances. Dante said, "I will not be traded like a bond." The arranged match waited with a dossier smile. A publicist recited risk in clean percentages. "Whoa." Dante said, "I neutralized the risk." The publicist said, "You made a bigger one." He saw Amara's startled eyes in his reflection. Freedom had tasted like mint and lightning. Dante said, "I will handle it." Pride sounded like a promise he owed himself. He thought of the matriarch's pearls and the camera's hunger. He needed a narrative before the market opened. Dante said, "Find her," and the city seemed to lean closer. He hated owing anyone, but he owed her clarity. Amara's non-profit gallery smelled like dust and varnish, and she reset labels with stubborn care. A curator whispered about donors canceling. Amara said, "We will open on time." Footsteps sharpened, and Dante filled the doorway like a problem. He removed his sunglasses as if lowering a shield. Dante said, "I owe you an apology." She kept working, and did not grant him the grace of a stare. Amara said, "You owe me silence." He stepped closer, voice softened by the quiet room. Dante said, "Let me fix what I broke." She laughed, brittle as glass. Amara said, "You broke nothing I did not already stitch." He offered a plan, neat and cruel. A short-term arrangement to stave scandal. Her hands trembled, then still. Amara said, "You want me to lie prettily." Dante said, "I want you paid, protected, and free of their teeth." They moved to the side office where sunlight sliced across a battered desk. Dante laid out terms, crisp as contracts. Dante said, 30 days, public calm, generous fee, strict boundaries. Amara tasted the iron of pride and the salt of rent. Amara said, "My name remains mine." Dante said, "Always." She said, "No touching unless I consent." He nodded like a vow hurt his throat. Amara said, "I choose the exits, the narrative, the hours." Dante said, "You choose everything except the headlines." She studied him until the seconds bruised. Amara said, "Then you will face them with me." He held her gaze and did not flinch. The air cooled. Agreement settled like a slow storm. Outside, a camera flash ghosted the frosted glass. Amara said, "They already found us." Dante said, "Then we start now." They debuted the truce outside a Brooklyn cafe, as drizzle stitched silver lines across the morning. Dante said, "We walk out together and the noise calms." Amara said, "Only if I choose the noise." He offered his arm like a proposition signed in ink. She took it because boundaries mean little if you cannot test them. A reporter shouted if the kiss was love or leverage. Amara said, "It was a moment, and now we decide what comes next." Dante said, "What comes next is respect publicly and privately." The flashes softened when their hands found each other, and the rain blessed the lie. In the penthouse conference room, the city looked like an expensive chart of mistakes. The publicist, a black woman of 40 with sharp eyes, said, "We craft beats, or they craft bruises." Dante said, "No lies, only curation." Amara said, "No erasing my work or my voice." A lawyer typed like a metronome for caution. "Ha." The plan asked for 3 appearances and a joint statement. Amara said, "My gallery opening stays mine." Dante said, "Then we amplify it, not colonize it." The publicist smiled, sensing a fire she could aim without snuffing. At the charity luncheon, pearls clinked like quiet threats, and the matriarch's smile cut air. The matriarch, a white woman of 60, said, "Stability flatters investors." Dante said, "So does integrity." Amara said, "So does funding art that feeds the city you market." A donor murmured that storms follow ambition. Dante said, "Then we carry umbrellas and keep building." Cameras caught their posture more than their words. The matriarch's eyes measured Amara and found her inconvenient. Amara met the glare and let it slide off like rain on stone. The SUV folded them into a hush that smelled of leather and rain. Dante said, "You were brilliant, and I do not say that to manage you." Amara said, "Good, because I cannot be managed." He watched her reflection drift across the window like a second self. "Not," Dante said, "I am not used to asking." Amara said, "Practice." A message pinged with headlines cooling from boil to simmer. He exhaled like he had been holding breath since the rooftop. Amara said, "Tomorrow we set my gallery's terms." He nodded, and the city slid by like a patient witness. They signed the agreement in a boutique law office where silence billed by the minute. Dante said, 30 days, and I keep the arranged match dead." Amara said, 30 days, and I keep my name alive." Pens whispered across paper like secrets choosing homes. The lawyer said, "Boundaries and exit clauses are clear." Amara caught Dante's stare and saw edge and ache, both honest. A notification blinked with a new leak about board pressure. Dante said, "They will push back." Amara said, "Then we will push better." The final signature settled like thunder promising rain. The gallery opening pulsed with jazz and camera shutters, paintings glowing like secrets on canvas. Amara said, "This is my night, not yours." Dante said, "Then let me stand behind you, unseen but useful." She wore resolve like armor and silk. He wore control like a second skin. Critics hovered, hungry for weakness. Amara said, "You smile too easily when you scheme." Dante said, "I smile when I win." The crowd pressed closer, eager to witness either collapse or creation. Amara exhaled, refusing to fold, and his presence steadied her like a shadow-turned shield. Later, Amara found herself cornered by a critic who wore arrogance as cologne. The critic said, "Your work leans on spectacle more than soul." Amara said, "Spectacle feeds the eyes, soul feeds the city. And I serve both." Dante appeared at her side, calm but sharp. Dante said, "Funny, critics profit from the very spectacle they condemn." The critic faltered, scribbling anyway. Amara hid a smile in her glass. She said, "Let them write. They cannot edit truth from color." Dante said, "They will try." She whispered, "Then let them starve." The critic retreated, leaving her taller. After the guests thinned, Amara leaned against a column, exhaustion folding into her shoulders. Dante approached slowly, offering a glass of water instead of champagne. Dante said, "You were unstoppable tonight." Amara said, "I was terrified, but I smiled harder." He admired her honesty, like it was rarer than diamonds. Amara said, "You use me for your freedom, but tonight I used you for my shield." Dante said, "Then we are even." Silence stretched, not awkward, but heavy with something unnamed. Her pulse betrayed her calm. His stare promised storms and refuge in the same breath. In the car ride back, city lights smeared across the tinted glass like restless paint. Amara said, "People whispered your name more than mine." Dante said, "They whisper, but they listen to you." She studied him, suspicious of comfort disguised as truth. He said, "Your fire silenced rooms. I only amplified the echo." Amara said, "And tomorrow, when they forget me?" Dante said, "They won't. Not if I refuse to let them." She laughed softly, shaking her head. Amara said, "You are dangerous when you sound sincere." He replied, "And you're dangerous when you make me mean it." The next morning, Amara's phone buzzed again, but this time headlines praised the gallery and whispered about their chemistry. Her friend said, "They're calling you unstoppable." Amara said, "Today, maybe." She saw photos of Dante watching her instead of cameras. Heat traced her cheeks. Dante called, his voice rough with dawn. Dante said, "I meant what I said. You silenced them." Amara said, "I did not need your words to do it." He said, "But you had them anyway." The line crackled with things unsaid. She hung up first, but her chest carried the weight of him. The boardroom chilled like winter glass as Dante faced his father's glare. His father, a tall black man of 60 with iron-gray hair, said, "Your theatrics stain the family name." Dante said, "I will not be bartered into a loveless union." A rival cousin smirked at the corner, whispering about weak heirs. Dante's jaw locked as numbers and legacy were thrown like weapons. He thought of Amara's voice cutting through donors and critics alike. Dante said, "Respect is not bought with silence but earned with truth." His father said, "Then prove she is worth the empire you risk." At her gallery office, Amara studied a letter slipped under her door, anonymous but cruel. It hissed that she was nothing but a pawn in Dante's war. Her chest burned, but her spine held straight. She whispered, "I am not theirs to play." A friend warned her of blogs painting her as a social climber. Amara said, "Let them. My work will speak louder." She remembered Dante's kiss, reckless but deliberate, and wondered if she had been naive. Anger sharpened into fuel as she placed the letter in a drawer. She said, "They will not make me small again." That night, Dante appeared uninvited, his expression heavier than his tailored coat. Amara said, "You walk in like you own walls that aren't yours." Dante said, "I came because they are circling you, and I will not let them." She laughed bitterly, saying, "You lit the fire, now you fear the smoke." His hand brushed the table edge, restraint visible in his posture. Dante said, "I protect what matters." Amara said, "Then learn I am not yours to guard." Silence swelled until their eyes broke like glass against flame. Desire flared, messy and inevitable, neither retreating. The argument fractured into silence before collapsing into fire. Dante reached, and Amara did not move away. Their mouths met, not gentle but furious, every wound stitched with heat. She gasped between breaths. "This changes nothing." Dante said, "It changes everything." Their hands clutched at fabric at certainty, pulling each other into risk. The storm outside howled like a witness. Her heartbeat betrayed her anger, her body betraying the fortress she had built. She whispered, "I hate you for making me want this." He said, "Then hate me louder." And the night swallowed their denials. Morning came cruel with headlines. Stolen photos of them entwined, intimacy dragged into public spectacle. Amara's phone erupted with betrayal disguised as curiosity. She whispered, "They turned my body into their weapon." Dante stormed in, eyes dark, saying, "This was planted to break us." She said, "There is no us." He flinched like the words were steel. The gallery board threatened withdrawal, her livelihood twisting. Amara said, "You promised protection, but you bring ruin." Dante said, "Then I will fight them all." She turned away, tears unshed, saying, "I do not need a savior. I needed honesty." The gallery's boardroom smelled of dust and fear, as donors threatened to cut ties. A pale-faced trustee said, "We cannot be attached to scandal." Amara said, "You fund art, not gossip. If you cannot see that, leave." Her voice shook, but her spine never bent. A younger board member whispered support, but the older voices drowned him. Amara remembered Dante's vow to shield her, then shoved the thought aside. She said, "I built this gallery from nothing, and I will not let whispers steal it." Silence fell sharp as glass, and even dissenters sat still, unsettled. In his penthouse, Dante stared at stock tickers bleeding red like wounds. His cousin smirked from a corner, saying, "Your rebellion costs billion." Dante said, "Profit is temporary, dignity lasts." His father's silence was worse than rage, an unspoken verdict. Dante slammed the laptop shut, frustration tightening every muscle. He remembered Amara's last words, "Honesty demanded, never given." Dante said, "She was right." The cousin said, "She is your weakness." Dante replied, "She is my clarity." Yet the numbers did not care for clarity, and empire crumbled while desire and pride warred in his chest. At home, Amara scrolled through comments clawing at her name, each one a stone thrown by strangers. Her best friend called, saying, "Block them, protect your heart." Amara said, "I cannot unsee what they write." She closed her eyes and pictured the night she felt strong, Dante behind her like a shadow. She whispered, "I want the strength without the shadow." A notification buzzed, another headline painting her as scandal. Amara threw the phone on the couch, chest tight, then said aloud, "I am not their pawn. I am not his alibi. I am me." That evening, Dante arrived at her gallery unannounced, voice heavy with urgency. Dante said, "I can stop the board from collapsing your funding." Amara said, "You already collapsed my peace." He stepped closer, his eyes fierce, yet softer than she remembered. Dante said, "Give me a chance to fight with you." Amara said, "I do not trust fighters who started the war." He faltered, silence exposing his guilt. The hum of lights filled the void between them. Amara turned her back, whispering, "I do not know if I hate you more for lying or for making me need you." The next morning, Amara walked alone through Prospect Park, mist softening the trees. She whispered, "I need silence more than victory." Joggers passed, unaware of her storm. She thought of Dante's vow, his betrayal, and the kiss that started everything. Her chest ached with the weight of pride and longing. She said, "He is not my savior. I will save myself." Yet her hand traced her lips unconsciously, betraying memory. The mist thickened, wrapping her like a cocoon. For the first time she let herself cry, but only for a moment. Then she straightened, breath sharp as resolve. Dante sat in the back of a black town car, staring at a dossier his publicist shoved into his hands. It detailed Amara's gallery debts, her board's threats, and rumors ready to implode her career. Dante whispered, "They'll break her if I don't stand in front." His father's voice replayed, proof demanded, loyalty tested. Dante said, "For once, I will not choose empire over truth." His jaw set, he told the driver, "Take me to her." The city lights blurred, neon streaking across the window like veins of fire. His heart beat against old pride, forcing him to move. Amara sat on a gallery bench after hours, staring at a half-finished canvas. Paint clung to her fingers like stubborn ghosts. She said, "If I stop, they win." Yet her body sagged beneath exhaustion. A friend called, warning of fresh headlines, rumors of embezzlement. Amara said, "They will invent anything to strip me down." Her chest tightened but resolve flared. She whispered, "My work is my proof." When she looked up, Dante stood in the doorway, eyes shadowed but intent. Amara said, "I did not ask you here." He answered, "I came anyway." And silence stretched. Dante stepped closer, voice low but steady. Dante said, "They are trying to bury you, but I will not let them." Amara laughed bitterly. Amara said, "Your shadow is half their ammunition." He flinched but pressed forward. Dante said, "Let me take the blows this time." Amara rose, paint smudged on her cheek, eyes sharp. Amara said, "Do not confuse guilt with love." Silence carried the weight of both truths. He whispered, "It's more than guilt." She stared until her chest hurt. The city hummed beyond the glass, waiting for her answer she wasn't ready to give. The next day, headlines exploded with claims that Amara stole donor funds. Protesters gathered outside the gallery, signs sharp as accusations. Amara stood at the window, pulse pounding. She whispered, "They want me erased." Dante arrived through the crowd, cameras flashing like gunfire. Reporters shouted if she'd confess. Dante wrapped his arm around her and said to them, "She is not your scapegoat, she is your future." His voice thundered against the storm of lies. Amara's breath caught. She had never seen him wield his power for anyone but himself. For a moment she let herself believe. Night fell heavy as Amara locked the gallery doors, her pulse still trembling from the day. She turned and found Dante waiting inside, shadows softening his edges. Dante said, "You saw how they twist anything. Let me stand until it breaks." Amara whispered, "And when you leave, what remains?" His eyes lowered, confession coiled in his throat. Dante said, "I will not leave, not this time." Tears pricked her eyes, uninvited. She said, "Do not promise what you cannot keep." He stepped closer, voice steady as stone. Dante said, "Then watch me keep it." And silence burned. The night air along the Hudson was thick with summer heat, but Amara's chest felt colder than the river itself. She walked along the boardwalk, her heels clicking against the planks, the city skyline glowing like a crown she never asked to wear. Her phone buzzed with messages, donors wavering, critics sharpening knives, friends asking if she was safe. She silenced it and breathed. Dante found her there, his shadow tall, his face drawn but steady. Dante said, "I thought I had lost you tonight." Amara turned, her expression unreadable. She said, "You never had me to lose." His shoulders stiffened, but his gaze did not waver. He said, "I have lived my life bound by deals and duties, but with you, it is not a contract, it is a choice." She exhaled sharply, laughter brittle. "And yet you offered me a contract first." Dante stepped closer, careful, as though approaching fire. "Because it was the only language I knew. But you taught me another." Her heart beat louder than the traffic, and she hated the way hope whispered inside her ribs. The next morning, the Kade mansion roared with tension as the patriarch gathered family and board members in the great hall. The arranged bride-to-be stood like porcelain, her smile brittle, her silence sharpened by expectation. Dante walked in, Amara beside him, her chin high though her pulse raced. Gasps echoed. His father said, "This is your last chance to honor your duty." Dante replied, "My duty is to truth, not to tradition." A cousin sneered, "You'll destroy us for a gallery girl." Amara said, "I build, while you hoard. Which of us serves legacy better?" Silence crashed heavy. Dante clasped her hand before everyone. "This is the woman I choose, and I will fight any who call her less than enough." The bride-to-be's facade cracked, envy flashing, but she said nothing. The patriarch's jaw clenched. He said, "Then prove it. Stand against the storm you've called down." By afternoon, reporters had gathered like vultures outside the gallery, demanding answers about Amara's integrity and Dante's defiance. Amara stood at the podium, microphone glaring, cameras clicking in endless rhythm. Her hands trembled until Dante touched her elbow, grounding her. Amara said, "My name is mine. My work is mine. My love of this city is mine. No rumor, no headline, no empire will take that from me." The crowd murmured, some jeering, others moved. A reporter asked if she was Dante's pawn. Dante stepped forward, eyes hard as steel. Dante said, "She is no one's pawn, she is the queen, and I stand at her side." Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. For the first time, Amara did not flinch. Her voice rose steady. "Believe what you want. But know this, truth always outlasts the lie." The applause was hesitant at first, then spread like wildfire through the crowd. The gallery's grand reopening that evening felt like rebirth. Crowds filled the space, this time not with whispers of scandal, but with reverence for art. Amara moved through the rooms, her paintings glowing like hymns under spotlights. Dante lingered near her, not overshadowing but orbiting like gravity. A donor approached, hesitant. He said, "You were brave to weather the storm. I'd like to fund your next exhibit." Amara's throat tightened, gratitude and triumph colliding. She said, "I do not bend for storms, I use them to power me." Dante caught her gaze, pride blazing. Amara said quietly, "I fought for myself tonight." He smiled, softer than she had ever seen. "And I fought for us." For the first time, she let herself believe they might not be enemies of fate, but partners against it. Later, the gallery emptied, and only the hum of city outside remained. Amara stood before her largest canvas, colors sprawling like battle scars and promises. Dante approached quietly, his voice low. "When I kissed you on that rooftop, I thought I was escaping." She turned, lips curving. "And instead you found me." His hand brushed hers, not claiming, only offering. She said, "I was afraid of losing myself in your storm." He whispered, "Then let's build one together." Their foreheads touched, silence binding them tighter than words. Outside, the city roared with traffic and life, but inside, Amara finally exhaled. She said, "Then, this is not escape, it's arrival." Dante kissed her again, no cameras, no crowd, only truth between them.